Good evening and welcome to the news tonight, your one stop for the day's top stories. I'm Tracy Shilshi and here are the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds series of election rallies in Gujarat, targets Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi and opposition on a slew of issues. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj to represent India at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Russia's Sochi city tomorrow. Agenda to focus on fight against terrorism, regional connectivity and cultural and economic relations. Three-judge Supreme Court bench expresses reservations about the correctness of verdict laying down safeguards to prevent misuse of dowry law. And North Korea launches its most powerful intercontinental ballistic missile. Missile lands in Japanese waters, flies higher than any other missile that Pyongyang has tested before. Well, let's start with campaigning, which is at its peak at the Gujarat elections. The contest is shaping to be a battle between the BJP, which is championing the gains from what has been called the Gujarat model of development. The opposition has focused on targeting these claims and calling them hollow, turning the Gujarat Assembly elections into the model battle. Prime Minister Narendra Modi resumed his campaign for the Gujarat Assembly polls after inaugurating the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in Hyderabad. He addressed several rallies on Wednesday across Gujarat in the southern districts of the state, in fact, where polling will be held in the first phase on the 9th of December. In his speeches, Modi continued with his blistering attack on the Congress party. Our correspondent Panjanan Mishra gets us this ground report.
Continuing his high decibel campaign in poll-bound Gujarat, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a series of rallies in the state on Wednesday. At his first rally in the town of Morbi, the Prime Minister raised the issue of the water crisis in the region.
गुजरात में लोग भागीदारी थी, लाखों की संख्या में चेक आया, पानी नो टीपू टीपू बचाओ, जन जागृति लावવાનો प्रयास करो, जन भागीदारी नो प्रयास करो. आखा देश में पानी ना तळ नीचा जता था, गुजरात एक ज એવું હતું કે જ્યાં પાણીના તળ ઉપર આવવા માંડ્યા. અને જ્યારે અમે ચેકડેમ બનાયા અને ખેડૂતોએ ગામડે ગામડે પાણી ભરેલા જોયા, ચૈત્ર મહિનામાં જોયા, માગસર મહિનામાં જોયા, જેઠ મહિનામાં જોયા, તેમની આંખોમાં ટાઢક વળી. અને એ વખતે મને યાદ છે કચ્છ કાઠિયાવાડ ગુજરાતનો ખેડૂત અમારી આ ખાલી ચેકડેમની યોજનાથી એટલો ખુશ રહેતો હતો.
Prime Minister Modi targeted Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi for his sarcastic remarks about the GST. Modi claimed that people who looted the country can only think of dacoits.
જેમણે જિંદગી ભર જનતાની તિજોરીઓ પર ડાકાગીરી કરી હોય, એમને ડાકુઓ સિવાય બીજા કોઈની યાદ ના આવે ભાઈ. અને એટલા માટે આજે એક નવો ગ્રાન્ડ સ્ટુપિડ થોટ જીએસટી, ગ્રાન્ડ સ્ટુપિડ થોટ એ એમ કે છે કે અમે બધા જીએસટી 18% કરી નાખીશું. હું જરા પૂછવા માંગુ છું ભાઈ,
At another rally in Prachi, Modi hit out at the opposition party for making what he called false promises to the OBC community. He asked why they did not give constitutional status to the National Commission for Backward Classes.
પણ રાજ્યસભામાં તમારી બહુમતી હતી, અમારી પાસે પૂરતા મત નહોતા, કારણ કે બંધારણીય સુધારો કરવો જરૂરી હતો અને તમે હવનમાં હાડકા નાખવાનું કામ કર્યું અને કાયદો પસાર ન થવા દીધો. ઓબીસીના હકને રોકવાનું કામ આ કોંગ્રેસ પાર્ટીએ કર્યું છે.
In Palitana, the Prime Minister invoked Mahatma Gandhi to criticize the opposition Congress. The Prime Minister concluded the day with a rally in Navsari in South Gujarat. Voting for the first phase in the state will be held on the 9th of December.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is warning voters against previous Congress rule in Gujarat state and also saying that it's the first time that there is a BJP government in centre and state. So voters should utilize this situation and also vote wisely. In Morbi, with cameraman Junaid, Panchanan Mishra for Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi was also in poll-bound Gujarat on Wednesday. He began his campaign in the state with a visit to the famous Somnath temple. He then addressed an election rally at Visavadar in Junagadh district. In a speech, Rahul Gandhi reached out to the Patidar community. He also attacked Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the Rafale deal.
आप मुझे बताओ, आपने क्या गलती की है? हिंदुस्तान के किसान ने क्या गलती कर दी कि हिंदुस्तान के सबसे 10 अमीर लोगों का कर्जा माफ हो सकता है, मगर हिंदुस्तान के किसान का कर्जा माफ हो ही नहीं सकता? अब मैं आपको एक और बात बताता हूं. दिसंबर में जैसे कांग्रेस पार्टी की सरकार आएगी, जो काम मोदी जी 22 साल के लिए नहीं कर पाए, मैं आपको 10 दिन में करके दिखा दूंगा.
And in a strategically placed public meeting, Patidar leader Hardik Patel also campaigned just 30 kilometers away from Narendra Modi's campaign spot, Morbi. Patel addressed farmers of poll-bound Saurashtra region and urged the people to change the leadership in Gujarat. He also said that he will continue to interact with locals in the poll-bound state. Hardik Patel is scheduled to hold 10 rallies in the Saurashtra region before the first phase of polls on the 9th of December.
अभी भाई ये बताइए कि अभी आप जो है कामयाब रहे, भीड़ को जुटाने में कामयाब रहते हैं, लेकिन बीजेपी के खिलाफ कर रहे हैं, सपोर्ट किसका कर रहे हैं ये खुलकर नहीं बता रहे.
मैं बता ही तो रहा हूँ बीजेपी के खिलाफ कौन है. कांग्रेस को सपोर्ट मिलेगा. मैं चाहता हूँ आप भी कर दो.
ये बताइए, जो विकास की बात हो रही है लगातार 22 सालों की, आप भी कह रहे हैं कि विकास नहीं हुआ, वहाँ दावा है कि पूरा विकास हुआ.
क्या मुझे किसानों का विकास चाहिए? मुझे वो रिवर फ्रंट वाला विकास नहीं चाहिए. मुझे अदानी जो सूट पहनता है या वो ब्लेजर पहनता है उसका विकास नहीं चाहिए. मुझे किसान के जो धोती पहनता है उस धोती पर एक भी दाग नहीं चाहिए. वो विकास चाहिए.
On to other news, and following China's rejection to listing of dreaded terrorist and Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar in the UN, India will raise the issue of double standards on terrorism in the upcoming SCO summit to be held in Sochi of Russia. China and Russia, in fact, who are founders of this grouping of Central and some South Asian nations, have to clarify their position on the menace of terrorism as part of regional agenda. Here's what we can expect.
External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj will represent India at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Russia's Sochi on November 30th and December 1st. Fight against terrorism, regional connectivity and cultural and economic relations will be part of her agenda for the SCO Summit. Swaraj will also use this opportunity to connect with Russian leadership and other heads of states of member nations like Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan.
On 30th November, EAM will have bilateral meetings and attend the reception hosted by the Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev. On 1st December, EAM will attend the restricted meeting of the heads of delegation, which will be followed by the preliminary session. On the same evening, EAM will again attend a reception hosted by the Russian Prime Minister for all members of the delegation.
India became full member of the SCO in June this year along with Pakistan. While India attaches special significance to SCO in promoting political, economic and people-to-people interaction in the region, lack of convergence on issues like terrorism and road connectivity between India and Central Asia via Afghanistan may affect the actual results of the grouping. Pakistan has refused to accept the proposal. India will also speak to Russia and China on these issues separately in the meeting of separate grouping of RIC countries in Delhi on December 11, 2017. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha Television.
Meanwhile, Home Minister Rajnath Singh today asserted that India is making all efforts to eliminate terrorism and radicalization Addressing the Indian diaspora in Moscow, Rajnath Singh termed them as the greatest threat in the world. He stated that the Russian visit has strengthened cooperation between the two countries in the fields of security, counter-terrorism and anti-drug trafficking. The Home Minister, who is on a 3-day visit to Russia to deepen existing strategic and security ties, also described Russia as one of the most credible friends of India. India and Singapore today decided to work together in the Asia-Pacific region to ensure freedom of navigation in their fight against transnational terrorism. They will also coordinate with other regional countries for smooth movement of goods and services. Defence Minister of Singapore, Nga Eng Hen, is in Delhi on a 2-day visit to discuss issues of mutual importance.
The defence ministers of India and Singapore held extensive talks in New Delhi on Wednesday. Both sides signed an agreement to deepen cooperation in maritime security. It is intended to ensure safety against transnational terrorism and freedom of navigation while combating chemical and biological attacks.
Signing of a Navy-to-Navy agreement today reflects our intention and commitment to further deepen cooperative endeavours in our shared maritime domain to address mutual concerns. This agreement will enable a broader range of cooperative activities between our navies, such as supporting temporary deployments for each other's naval facilities, as well as enhancing maritime domain awareness.
That we were able to decide very quickly on our approach to issues such as terrorism and maritime security, which included capabilities in responding to chemical, biological and radiological threats, as well as the need for information sharing against the threat of terrorism. We both shared the concern with the developments in Iraq and Syria, that the theater of operations for terrorism can shift to our parts of the world.
The India-Singapore cooperation will also include coordination with other ASEAN countries for joint naval exercises.
The Defence Minister of Singapore responded positively to my proposal that we proactively move towards continuous, institutionalized naval engagements in our shared maritime space, including setting up maritime exercises with like-minded countries and our other ASEAN partners. This also reflects India's commitment to stay strongly engaged in the Asia-Pacific and the Indian Ocean region in collaboration with our friends and partners like Singapore.
Not only from the point of view of our militaries being able to respond, but to hold accountable, whether they were state-sponsored or non-state-sponsored or non-state actors, those who were responsible for the perpetration of these terrorist acts.
Both ministers also agreed to ensure greater collaboration in aerospace, electronics and other areas of mutual interest between defence industries in both countries. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
President Ramnath Kovind landed in Mizoram capital Aizawl on Wednesday on a 2-day visit. The president would address the Mizoram Legislative Assembly on Thursday and inaugurate the Housing for the Poor project at a function in Raj Bhavan. Earlier today, in West Bengal, the president visited the birthplace of Rabindranath Tagore at Jarasago and also Netaji Bhavan, the residence of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. He also attended the closing ceremony of the centenary celebrations of Bose Institute, a premier research institute established by Acharya Jagdish Chandra Bose. On the 1st of December, the president is scheduled to inaugurate the Hornbill Festival and State Formation Day celebrations of Nagaland before leaving for Delhi. Ivanka Trump, advisor to US President Donald Trump, has battled for formulation of policies that support a greater participation of women in the workforce. She said that technology can be used to allow women to work from their homes, helping reduce the gender gap. She said this during a panel discussion at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in Hyderabad. Ivanka Trump said that policymakers need to devise ways to support the modern workforce and the modern reality in households. She also pointed out that there is a need to fuel skill training and develop the workforce in order to align what is being taught in the classroom with economic realities.
And we need to start thinking about ways to support the modern workforce and the modern reality of dual income households. I think technology is a great driver of entrepreneurship because a lot of women are leaving and saying this doesn't work for me, and it's emboldening them to go out on their own. Technology is reducing barriers to starting new businesses. It's creating flexibility around schedule. So you can work just as many hours or more, but maybe you work some of them after you've put your child to sleep.
In more national news, the Supreme Court has said that it cannot frame guidelines on how to investigate cases of dowry harassment, as that will amount to going beyond statutory provisions. The Apex Court also said that it will revisit the judgment by a two-judge bench that had directed the formation of a committee that would scrutinize the complaints of dowry harassment before the police could act on them. The two-judge bench had also laid down guidelines to be followed when dealing with the complaints of dowry harassment. The guidelines were framed on how the police should proceed in cases of dowry harassment under Section 498A of the Indian Penal Code. Kerala JDU President MP Virendra Kumar today announced his decision to resign from Rajya Sabha. Kumar's decision comes in the wake of the Election Commission allotting the party symbol to the Nitish Kumar-led faction. The Kerala leader said that he did not want to continue as the MP of a party that's led by Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar. Virendra Kumar was elected to Rajya Sabha in March 2016. He joined the UDF in Kerala after snapping ties with the CPIM-led LDF over differences on the Kozhikode Lok Sabha election with CPIM in 2009. And here's a quick look at what else made news across the country today in Nationwide. The Hyderabad Metro Rail opened for public today, with passengers describing their first-time travel as a convenient and comfortable experience. The Metro Rail commenced its operations between Miapur and Nagol, having a total distance of 30 kilometers and 24 stations. It has fixed a minimum of 10 rupees for a distance of up to 2 kilometers and a maximum fare of 60 rupees for a distance of more than 26 kilometers. Haryana's BJP Chief Media Coordinator Suraj Pal Amu, infamous for threatening the makers and cast of Padmavati movie, resigned today. Amu recently announced a reward of 10 crore rupees for anyone who beheads actress Deepika Padukone and filmmaker Sanjay Leela Bhansali, and praised a Meerut youth who also had announced a similar threat. He also threatened actor Ranveer Singh, who is playing Delhi Sultanate ruler Alauddin Khilji in the movie, for supporting Bhansali. Hadia, the woman who is at the center of the alleged love jihad case in Kerala, has reiterated her desire to talk to her husband Shafeen Jahan. Hadia said that she had asked for freedom when she appeared before the Supreme Court, but is not free yet, and claimed that her rights have been curtailed. Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti has ordered the withdrawal of cases of stone pelting against 4,327 youths. Mufti hopes that this decision would help create a positive atmosphere in the state, where the youths would be able to build their lives in a more constructive and positive way. International news: and former Pakistan President General Pervez Musharraf has called himself the biggest supporter of the Lashkar-e-Toiba and its founder Hafiz Saeed, and said that he backs the terror group's role in Kashmir. Musharraf also said that the Mumbai attack mastermind Saeed is involved in Kashmir, which he supports. Musharraf also said that he has always been in favor of action in Jammu and Kashmir and suppressing the Indian army in the state. When asked why he had banned the Lashkar-e-Toiba when he was in power, Musharraf said that he banned the terror group under different circumstances. Musharraf's comments came days after Saeed walked free following Pakistan government's decision against detaining him any further.
सदा से ही पाकिस्तान एक नीतिबद्ध ढंग से वहां जो भी सरकार रही हो भारतवर्ष में विशेषकर जम्मू कश्मीर में आतंकवाद को बढ़ावा देने का कार्य करती रही, एक योजनाबद्ध तरीके से। और बीच बीच में जो पाकिस्तान और इस्लामाबाद की सरकार से ये कहा जाता है कि ये नॉन स्टेट एक्टर्स का हाथ है, जहां के सरकार का कोई संबंध नहीं, ताल्लुक नहीं, वो बात इस कथन से झुठलाई जाती है।
His position has always been that Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jamaat-ud-Dawa, they are his best friends, and he has been using them. And he has been using his ISI to fund them, to give them all kinds of support, logistic support, so that they could carry out terrorist activities within India. Because his main aim has been, and the army's main aim has been, to keep control over Pakistan by one means or the other.
I'm sorry if President of Pakistan, ex-President of Pakistan, thinks that Lashkar-e-Taiba is going to protect Islam, then I'm sorry. I feel sad that a man of his integrity, man who has been the chief of Pakistan Army as well as chief of Pakistan, he has praised something like this. It is a tragic moment.
Meanwhile, Hafiz Saeed may have to wait for the appointment of a new Security Council ombudsperson to hear his petition to remove his name from the UN's list of designated terrorists. Any request to delist a person from the UN list of designated terrorists is considered by an independent ombudsperson who then makes their recommendation. North Korea invited global condemnation yet again on Wednesday by launching its most powerful intercontinental ballistic missile. The country's state television said that Pyongyang had achieved its mission of becoming a nuclear state. It landed in Japanese waters but flew higher than any other missile the North had previously tested. Here are more details. South Korean President Moon Jae-in on an important call with US President Trump after confirmation that North Korea had launched an intercontinental ballistic missile that landed near Japan. Moon told Trump during their call that Pyongyang's missile technology seemed to have improved. North Korea's state media made the announcement on Wednesday, hours after Kim Jong-un ordered the 3 a.m. launch of the Hwasong-15 missile, which reached the highest altitude ever recorded by a North Korean missile.
대륙간 탄도로켓 화성 15용 무기 체계는 미국 본토 전역을 타격할 수 있는 초대용 중량급 핵탄두 장착이 가능한 대륙간 탄도 로켓으로서.
The launch was the first since September and came despite repeated warnings from US President Trump, who told reporters at the White House that the US will handle the situation.
These missile launches today, does it change anything about your basic approach to dealing with them?
Nothing changed. Nothing changed. We have a very serious approach. Nothing changed. We take it very seriously.
US Defense Secretary James Mattis, who was with Trump at the meeting, outlined how much tougher the situation has become.
It went higher, frankly, than any previous shot they've taken. It's a research and development effort on their part to continue building ballistic missiles that could threaten everywhere in the world, basically. And in response, the South Koreans have fired some pinpoint missiles out into the water to make certain North Korea understands that they could be taken under fire by our ally.
The Hwasong-15 soared 4,475 kilometers in the sky, spending 53 minutes in the air before splashing down in waters off the coast of Japan. Several countries, from Japan to the UK and even China, condemned the act of defiance.
联合国安理会的决议对朝鲜利用弹道导弹技术进行发射活动有明确的规定。中方对朝方有关发射活动表示严重关切和反对。中方强烈敦促朝方遵守安理会的相关决议，停止采取加剧半岛紧张的行动。
North Korea fired the missile a week after Trump put it back on a US list of countries that it says support terrorism. While global leaders led by the US continue with deliberations, Hawaii on Tuesday resumed a testing of Cold War-era nuclear attack warning sirens for the first time in at least a quarter century in preparation for a possible missile strike from North Korea. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. And here are some more quick updates from across the world in Global Buzz. Bali airport reopened on Wednesday, 2 days after volcanic eruptions spread ash across the holiday island and forced its closures, stranding tourists and spurring evacuation efforts. President Joko Widodo warned about the dangers of volcanic ash and urged transport authorities to continue close monitoring of the situation. Pope Francis on Wednesday urged the top Buddhist monks in Myanmar to help bind the nation's wounds by reconciling religions. The Pope made his appeal to the religious leaders of the overwhelmingly Buddhist country during a visit to the Supreme Sangha Council of Buddhist Monks, a national oversight body. Senior Saudi Prince Muttab bin Abdullah was freed after reaching an acceptable settlement with authorities paying more than $1 billion. According to a Saudi official, Prince Muttab was accused of embezzlement, hiring ghost employees and awarding contracts to his own firms, including a $10 billion deal for walkie-talkies and bulletproof military gear worth billions for Saudi royals. And finally, let's get you some updates from the world of sports in SportsBeat. In cricket, all-rounder Thisara Perera will take charge as Sri Lanka's one-day international captain for the upcoming three-match series against India. He will also lead his team in the three-match T20 international series. There were discussions to hand the captaincy to Angelo Matthews, but selectors ruled him out due to his constant injuries. Perera will now be replacing Upul Taranga as captain. South African cricketer AB de Villiers, who has not played a test match since last January, is expected to make his test appearance in a warm-up game against Zimbabwe. It will be a three-day warm-up match. Injuries sidelined de Villiers from the format, due to which he played his last test against England in January 2016. Manchester United defeated Watford 4-2 in the Premier League to cut Manchester City's lead to 5 points. Ashley Young scored twice, while Anthony Martial and Jesse Lingard scored 1 goal each. Ashley scored the opener in the 19th minute and his second goal in the 25th minute to put United in a decent position. Martial scored the third goal, extending the lead to 3-0. Troy Deeney and Abdoulaye Doucouré then struck for Watford in the second half, but Jesse Lingard broke all the hopes by scoring the fourth goal for United. FIFA presented the official poster for next year's World Cup finals in Moscow. The poster unveiled a vintage design of Soviet goalkeeper Lev Yashin in flight. The poster in fact shows Yashin wearing a knee brace and his signature cap, leaping across to get a hand on an oversized ball. The poster's presentation comes a few days before the World Cup draw, which will take place to determine the matchups for the group stage. That's it on the news tonight. Thank you for joining us.